Okay, good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon,
Afternoon.
Professor.
Any
Good
questions?
afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon,
Okay,
Professor.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so mock exam one. First, how did you find the exam? Okay. Will you please raise your hands, those who try to answer this uh, first and the second exam? Yeah. So I'm gonna pick up names, okay, and ask you to answer the first question, okay? So, yeah, Mr. Steven Khadraoui, can you please answer the first question? So, using extending expert theory, draw the tree structure for the following sentence.
Okay, Professor.
Okay, yes, Mr. Steven. The sentence is that man faced a very urgent situation at work.
Yes, it's a CP
Why CP?
because it's sentence. It has
Mhm,
subject and predicate.
okay, CP, C bar, C0 bar, then.
TP, T bar,
Mhm,
T, VP.
okay,
From the
DP,
VP we have DP and V bar.
okay, DP,
We have V and VP, another VP.
okay,
From the VP we have V bar, and
mhm.
from the V bar we have PP. We have prepositional phrase.
So, okay, let's do it step by step. So, TP, so what do we have here in the DP? Let's start with the subject. That man faced a very
Okay. And okay,
what is the subject? The subject is that
the man,
man.
yes, the man we branched from the VP.
So
And
that
then we
man,
move,
this that is not branched from C, because as we did last time, this C
It is bro.
is reserved for questions, okay?
yes,
Because some of the students who sent me their assignments, they branched this demonstrative pronoun, this determiner from C. Shouldn't be the case. So DP, so we have the D
we
bar,
have,
mhm,
yeah,
determiner, which is that,
and NP.
and in P, etc., in
Yes.
bar, etc., man.
And we have
Okay, yes.
movement here, Professor. We have movement. We have to move DP to
Before that, okay, before that.
mhm,
So the VP, we have the verb. Here we have mhm, active, right?
yes, active, yes.
And the verb is
We have a V bar and prepositional phrase.
mhm, faced faced a very urgent situation at work. Okay, so
We have
yes,
yes, we have
then
V bar there, and the prepositional phrase must be an adjunct to the V
mhm,
bar.
okay. So the verb is face,
Yes.
faced or face, and you put under T
ED,
ed
the
here. Okay,
additional ED.
ed here, and it must lower affix hopping or affix lowering. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
face under T. Okay. Then
From
we have
mhm. We have the prepositional phrase, Professor, from the V bar, the upper V bar.
yeah, DP first. Let's start with the object. A very urgent situation. So DP we have here. Okay, DP, a very urgent situation. We have B bar, mhm,
And D and NP.
determiner, which is A, and we have in P.
From NP we have in bar,
Mhm,
and we have adjective phrase, and it must be an adjunct to another in bar.
mhm. So from the adjective phrase,
We have adjective,
mhm,
From the adjective, we have adjective
We have
bar. Sorry,
adjective
Professor, we have
bar,
adjective bar, yes. And from the adjective bar, we have adjective,
verb phrase,
another
verb phrase.
adjective,
And
another
adjective
adjective
bar
bar,
here.
and yes,
A verb phrase which is very, okay. And
yes,
adjective bar, from the adjective bar, we have
adjective.
adjective zero bar, okay, which is urgent.
Yeah.
And this is always the rule, okay, when you have an adjective phrase with an adverb phrase, so it must be branched as an adjective phrase, then adjective bar. From the adjective bar, you have the adverb phrase, sister to another adjective bar, then adjective zero bar, okay?
Yes.
So, concerning the noun, yes, from in bar, we branch noun,
Any
which is situation,
situation.
okay?
Yes. And from the
Then we move
prepositional
to
phrase, we have P bar.
we move to the PP right here, preposition phrase.
We have P bar,
P bar,
P, which is add, and DP.
and DP, okay, which is
D bar,
D
D.
bar is zero bar. In P, in bar, N, which is work. Okay, so raise your hands, those who branch it correctly.
Professor, I have a question, please.
You may branch as well the DP. The DP should move, okay?
Yes, the DP should move to the upper, to the specifier of TP.
Yes, yeah. We are going to move the DP, okay? DP from this position, we need to move it, so we're going to collapse the two determiner, okay? Using triangle, because we are going to use the movement just to be more representative. Okay, so DP is that man, and it moves to its position, which is specifier of DP. Okay, so DP here, okay, which is that man. Okay, and here you leave trace, just trace here. Okay, so just trace, DP trace, which means that we have moved DP from this position. Trace DP. Here we have I here. Okay, any question? Yes, please. Any question? If there is no question, we can move on. Please raise your hands, those who did it correctly.
So,
Yes, Mr. Yasir.
I only have one. Why did we start with the deep structure? I mean, what was the motivation to start with the deep structure before the surface structure? Or are we always going to start with the deep structure in any example?
Now, this is the surface structure, Mr. Yasir. The deep structure is in the passive voice, because in the deep structure we have subject, verb, object. Okay, that man faced a very urgent situation. This is subject, verb, object, which means this is what we have in the surface structure, in the deep structure. Okay, but in the passive voice, for example, the book was read. So in the passive voice, we don't have subject, verb, object, which means that we have to start with the subject, verb, object, which we have in the deep structure.
But if this was the surface structure, then why didn't we put the DP in its position specifier of TP from the start?
We already answered this question, Mr. Yasir. We said normally we can generate the DP directly from the TP. But to account for languages that don't have subject verb objects such as Irish, so we generate DP from the VP and we move it to TP. Okay? Why? Why are we doing this? Because we want XBAR theory to account for all human languages, to account for languages that have subject, verb, object, word order, and languages that have verb, subject, object, order, etc. So the only way to do this is to always branch the DP from the VP. So languages such as English and French, etc., this DP must move to TP. And in other languages such as Irish, it doesn't have to. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
So we move on to second question, which is using extending XBAR theory, draw the tree structure for the following sentence. You must indicate and explain the motivation of movement if there is any. The man was hit by the rock. So who can do it, please? Yeah. Raise your hands, those who can do it. Raise your hands, please. Those who can do it, raise your hands. Okay, Fatiha Asrir.
Yes, Professor. So first we will claim that in the deep structure, this sentence was hit the man by the rock.
Okay, was hit the man by the rock. This is the deep structure, and this is what we have to start with. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Yes, we start with CP, C bar, C, TP, T bar, T, VP, V bar, then V, was under V, and then we have
was here, and then VP,
V bar, another V bar, because the second V bar must be sister to PP. So yes, first V bar we have V, then DP. In the V we have hit. Yes, DP the man, and then PP by the rock. P bar, P by DP, D bar.
And here preposition phrase. Okay, by the rock.
Yes.
So if the question in the exam is about the movement, then you can use the triangle, because my interest is the movement, is to test you in the way how you are going to generate the movement. Okay, that's why I'm using triangle. But if the question is draw the tree structure for the following sentence, then you mustn't use triangles. But if the question is draw the tree structure and indicate the movement, then you can use triangles, because it sounds more representative to indicate the movement when you use triangle. So the PP is by the rock. Okay, now the movement, yes, this is the passive voice, was hit the man by the rock. Now, as we said last time, we claim that in the passive form and the active form, we always have the theme after the verb, because it must get its theta role, okay, in the deep structure. Then it can move to satisfy the EPP.
Yes.
Yes.
So first we move the V was to T, V to T movement, auxiliaries.
So V to T movement, okay. So you may delete it here and write was here and here, the verb trace, okay, verb trace here.
And then we move DP to TP to satisfy the EPP.
Yes, so the DP, this one DP, okay, the man Okay. So the man, yeah. So as you can see, the DP must move, okay, from this position, okay, after the verb, okay, from this position. So we have trace DP, trace DP. Okay. Now, what are the motivations of this change? Then we get the surface structure, which is the man was hit by the rock. The question is not only to draw the structure, it's also to indicate, we can indicate, we did indicate the movement by the arrow. Now we need to explain the motivation of the movement. What is the motivation of this movement? Yes, please, yes. Yes, the same student. Go ahead.
Can I speak so?
Okay, let's move to somebody else. Khadija, yes, Hassan.
Yes, yes, Professor. We have the first movement. It's the V to T movement. We move the auxiliary from V to T because we need the auxiliaries need to be in the tense.
Mhm, mhm. The tense of finite verbs is strong. It must be spelled out. Okay, remember
Yeah.
this word, to spell out, which means that the verb, the verb moves to T in this case because T of finite clause is strong and it must be spelled out. Okay. And what about DP movement?
Yes, Professor. We applied the DP movement uh, from V bar. It was first in the V bar to uh, to the empty specifier of the TP because according to the EPP, the extended projection principle, every sentence must have a subject.
Mhm. Okay, so DP moves from the object position, okay, to the subject position, okay, to the spec. You can say this, to the spec of TP, spec specifier, spec of TP, to the spec of TP to satisfy the EPP principle, which requires that every clause must have a subject, and also to get the surface structure, the order, subject, verb, okay, of the language. But you forgot something very interesting. You forgot something very interesting. The sentence is in the passive voice. Was hit. The verb hit is in the
Professor?
passive voice.
Professor?
Yes.
Professor?
Yes.
DP here has a nominative feature, so and hit is minus accusative. So DP has to be moved to the upper TP to have a case to satisfy the EPP.
Yeah, you got the answer, but you just need to pay attention to the language you're using. Okay.
Professor?
So okay, somebody else who is speaking? Yeah.
Latifa.
Okay, go ahead.
Professor, since passive verbs cannot assign the accusative case to the object, then the DP, the man have to move to find the case, which is the nominative one, and satisfy EPP.
Okay, so it moves for two reasons. Okay, first, the verb hit has the feature of minus accusative, and DP has the feature of nominative, because it is not assigned accusative case by the verb, because the verb is in the passive voice and it's unable to assign the accusative case to the NP there. That's why the NP has nominative feature, but that's not the right position of the nominative feature so to be checked. So it moves to the spec, the specifier of TP, because that's the position of nominative case, because the T, this T of the finite clause, this T, pay attention to the T. You can add it here, okay? Nom, you can add nom here, which means it has the feature of nominative case, which means it goes to that position specified of TP for two main reasons: to satisfy the EPP, okay, and to get case, nominative case, to be closer to T, for the case filter to pass. Remember the case filter. DP has nominative case and T has nominative case, so they are checked, and that's fine. But when it is closer to the verb hit, hit has minus accusative and DP has nominative. So the case filter will rule it out because they don't have the same case features. So it must move to the specifier of TP because that's the position of the nominative to get the nominative case. Okay, shall we move to the other question? No question, please. Okay, now question number 3. Explain the following grammatical judgment. Please your answer on the relevant theory, which means we have here different theories to use to support our answers. So use the relevant theory according to each statement. Number 1, was killed a man. Okay, was killed the man. Was killed a man. So why is it ungrammatical? Base your answer on the theories we talked about. Leila, yes, please.
Hello, Professor.
Hello, yes, go ahead.
According to theta rule theory, the verb killed requires two arguments.
Okay.
The agent, which is the subject, DP, and the theme, which is the direct object. And in the sentence, there is a lack of the agent argument. And this violates the second condition of the theta criteria. Every theta rule is assigned to an argument.
Okay, yes, so the verb kill requires, according to theta grid, requires two arguments, okay? Requires two arguments. Requires an agent, which is the subject, and the agent must be DP, okay? We underline the subject, agent, and requires what? The theme, okay? The theme, requires a theme, okay? The agent and theme. So here we have I, and here we have J. Remember what we did in the theta roles and theta theory, in particular when we talked about theta grid. This is theta grid, okay? Now the problem is that here we're lacking the agent here. Okay? The agent is missing. The agent is missing. The agent is missing. We don't have an agent here. So you can support your answer using the theta grid. So by definition, the verb kill requires two arguments. An agent, which is a DP, the subject, and a theme, which is also DP. A theme, which is also a DP. Okay. The problem is that in this sentence, was killed the man, was killed the man, we have only the theme. We don't have an agent. So as your classmate said, this is a violation of one of the theta criterion principle or constraint. Remember, please don't forget the theta criterion constraint, which requires that the number, you should have the same, you should have a mapping relationship between the number of the arguments, okay, and the number of the theta roles. So here we have theta role of the theme, and it has its own argument, J here, which is the man. Here we have an argument, I, but we don't have a theta role, which is the agent. So there is violation of the theta criterion constraint. This is the reason why this sentence or statement is ungrammatical. If you want, I will also accept another answer, which is the verb kill is in the passive voice. It cannot assign the accusative case to the DP, the man. So the man remains there caseless. It must move to a position. Where it gets case. So it should be the man was killed. So the man must remove from that position. It must move to the subject position to satisfy the EPP and to get case. So you can explain this ungrammatical sentence by using the case theory, in which you say the man there is caseless because the verb is in the passive form and it must move to the subject position to get case and to satisfy the EPP. And you can explain this ungrammatical sentence by using the theta role theory. You can say that the verb kill, by definition, requires two arguments. The subject, which must be an agent, somebody who kills, somebody who did the action of killing, and a theme, which is also a DP. Unfortunately, in this statement, there is only a theme. There is only a theme. So this violates the conditions of the theta criterion constraint. Is it clear? Pay attention. You will have it in the exam. Any question? Is it clear? Yes or no?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, now what can you say about B was raining? Can anyone explain why is it incorrect, please?
Professor.
Let's move to somebody else. Mohammed Arawi?
Yes, Professor. You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. In this sentence, as a remark, it lacks an explicit pronoun because we have seen that the weather case needs an explicit pronoun, which plays the role of a subject.
Okay. You've got the right answer, but you just need to formulate it in the way it should be.
According to EPP, it's not satisfied in this case because theta criterion restraint says that the weather case needs an explicit pronoun.
No. You are talking about two different things, Mr. Mohammed.
Yes.
The verb rain, how many arguments does it require?
Just one.
Are you sure?
No argument.
No argument.
No
argument.
No.
Which means when we say was raining, there is no problem in terms of the theta criterion constraint, because the verb rain requires no arguments. It violates something else. It doesn't violate. This is the way how you should answer. You should say that the verb rain, by definition, requires no arguments. Remember what we said about the weather verbs. So
yes.
this means that there is no violation of the theta criterion principle or constraint, because the verb rain does not require argument. Fine. So why is it incorrect? This is because of the violation of another constraint, which is the EPP,
Yes.
extend projection principle, which requires that every clause must have a subject. So this is a violation. This is the reason why it is ungrammatical. If you want to add, and this is optional, so to correct it, we must add an expletive pronoun. It was raining, an expletive. So the expletive pronoun is simply added as a solution. We are not talking about solutions here. Pay attention to the question. Explain why it is ungrammatical. If I ask you in the exam, how can we correct these ungrammatical sentences? Then you can say that we need an expletive it, okay, to pass to satisfy the APP. Any question? Is it clear?
Yes,
So
sir. Thank you.
Statement B is ungrammatical because it violates the EPP, not the case theory, not the theta roles. Okay, now we move to C. Is likely that John to go. Who can explain its ungrammaticality? Please raise your hands. Mr. Omar, yes, please.
Professor?
Yes, Omar?
Yes, is likely that John to go. The lower T here is a non-finite, which does not satisfy the case filter, which means it doesn't have nominative case. So, the DP here must move to another position to find case.
Okay. Somebody else? Yes, you're right. Good.
Professor?
Somebody else? Dunia, yes. Hussein?
Sorry, Professor. I didn't pay attention that my mic is off. So there is a violation here of the EPP, because it is not satisfied. So we have to insert the pronoun expletive to satisfy it.
So,
Sir?
Professor?
Okay, that's enough. Okay, that's enough. So C is likely that John to go. Now we have two problems here. We have two problems. Okay, first, the sentence has no subject. Okay, is likely, etc. So it violates the EPP. So this is the first problem. The second problem is that John to go. The problem here is that the DP John is followed by non-finite to. Remember what we said about non-finite to? It doesn't have the case, the nominative case feature. Okay, it's weak. So the DP John, according to case filter, DP John has nominative case, and the non-finite to, the lower T, doesn't have nominative case. So according to case filter, they don't match the nominative case. So it is ruled out, which means that John DP must move to another position where it gets case. So it must move to the front position, and it becomes John is likely to go. John is likely to go. So John must move to the front position. Why? Because we have is, and is the first TP. In the first TP, we have a strong T because it's a finite clause and it has the feature nominative case. So it can assign nominative case to John. But the non-finite T of 2 cannot assign nominative case to John. Okay, so John moves to the front position for two main reasons: to get nominative case and to satisfy the EPP. Maybe in the exam, I might give you an example like, it is likely that John to go, and it is still incorrect. It is likely that John to go, which means that we inserted it, the expletive it, to satisfy the EPP. So we don't have the problem in the EPP. We have the problem with John, which is not assigned case from or by the non-finite to. Okay, so you may have this example, is likely that John to go, or you may have an example like, it is likely that John to go. Both of them are incorrect, but for C here, there are two explanations. Okay, John moves to satisfy the EPP and to get case or to check case, nominative case feature. Okay, but it is likely that John to go, we don't need John to move to the front position because the expletive pronoun it satisfies the EPP. So there is no need to move John to the front position. Okay. Any question? Shall we move to D? John called. Yasin Al-Khuda. Yes, please. Somebody else, Latifa, can you please answer question D?
Okay, Professor. Here we have John call. The verb call requires two arguments, but here we have a violation of the second condition of the theta criterion that say each theta role must have one and only one argument. So the verb call requires two arguments and two thematic relation.
So I'm dealing with the verb called here as a transitive verb because it could be intransitive in certain contexts. Okay? I'm dealing with it. I'm considering the verb call as a transitive verb. So in this case, it requires, okay, two arguments. Okay, the verb call requires two. Okay, it requires somebody. So the verb call requires a subject, which is the agent, which must be DP, and somebody. Leila, please mute your mic. Okay, so the verb call requires two arguments as a transitive verb. The agent DP, somebody who called me, for example. Okay, and it requires the recipient, receive, okay, recipient, okay, recipient, and it must be a DP as well, okay. Yeah, so this is the theta grid for the verb call as a transitive verb. Now what is missing here is the recipient, so we don't have a recipient here. We don't have a recipient. Okay. So this is the reason why it is ungrammatical, because of the violation of theta criterion constraint. Suppose that we have here, John called Fatima Halima, for example. So the problem here is that we have so it requires only one recipient, but the problem here we have two. We should add another one here. Okay, should add another one here. Or we have two recipients here, and the problem is that we have the verb call requires only two arguments. Only two arguments. The problem here is that we have three arguments. Okay, three arguments. The verb call requires only two arguments and theta roles. Okay, but in this sentence, John called Fatima Halima, we have three arguments. But it requires only two arguments, which means that we have an extra argument which is not supported, which doesn't match a theta role. Okay, so you may have it in the exam in which case you may have extra arguments, okay, or maybe fewer arguments than required by a verb. Okay, now we move to E. He gave her a book.
Sir.
He gave her a book.
Professor?
Yes?
Professor?
Okay, Sliman, Mr. Sliman, yes?
Yes, Professor. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. According to binding theory, the two arguments must not be context. So the principle B in binding theory says pronoun must be free in its binding domain. So the pronoun he has to be free, not context with the argument book.
I think you missed the point, Mr.
Are expressions,
All
I think.
expressions.
Yes, there are expressions.
All expressions must always
free.
be
And it's
free.
principle C,
Okay?
not B.
Yeah.
And this is principle C, yeah, principle C. Our expressions. Our expressions are nouns that refer to external entities, book, table, student, teacher, university, etc. So here, a book has, okay, the index I, and he has the index I, which means the R expression in the book is co-indexed, that is bound with he, which shouldn't be the case. So you should say that this sentence is ungrammatical because a book is an R expression, and according to binding theory, especially binding principle C, our expressions must be free in whether in the same binding domain or not in the same binding domain. It must always be free, okay, and binding. And here it's not free. That's why it's ungrammatical. Okay, so here an example of our expressions. In the exam, you may have pronouns, or you may have reflexive pronouns. Okay. So in the exam, I may also ask you to correct it. So you simply change this I to another index.
G.
Okay, yes. F, he thought that himself killed the man. Why is it ungrammatical? Raise your hands, please. Raise your hands, please. If you know the answer, raise your hands. Okay, Mr. Nordin, yes?
I think that the sentence is incorrect because the anaphor must be in the same binding domain with the antecedent.
Must be co-index or must be bound.
Bound in the same binding domain.
What do you mean by bound, Mr. Nordin?
Bound,
what does it mean?
Co-index and C-commanded.
Yes, co-index and C-commanded, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
So he thought that himself killed the man. So the problem here, it's ungrammatical because the anaphor himself, okay, must be bound, okay, with its antecedent, which is he, in the same binding domain, okay? Well, I should have given you I under he and I under himself, but it's okay. We can deduce that. Okay, so it's ungrammatical because himself is not in the same clause where we find the pronoun he. It must be in the same clause, which means it must be in the same binding domain. So this is an easy statement. Okay, an easy question. And now we move to the mock exam number 2. Draw the tree structure for this sentence and explain the usefulness of X-bar theory. The book of poetry on the table. The book of poetry on the table. Who can do it?
Sir?
Safa? Yes, please.
Professor, we can start by MP because we talk about X-bar theory and not extending X-bar theory. Instead of DP, we can start by. In the question,
okay. NP, okay. X-bar theory, right? NP.
Determiner and M-bar. M-bar. Then N. Preposition phrase.
Here we have the. Here we have book. Here we have
preposition phrase.
Phrase. Okay. Poems. And here we have the second preposition.
Preposition phrase.
On the table. Okay. Now explain the usefulness of X-bar theory.
Here, this structure, it shows the difference between complement and adjunct, because a poem is a complement of book, so it's closer to the book, and on the table is an adjunct, so it's not closer to the
Yes. So thanks to X-bar theory, so look at the traditional one, the traditional branching. So here we have noun, book. So this is the flat structure, the traditional one, the first prepositional phrase. And the second prepositional phrase, this is the flat structure, the traditional one, where the complement and the adjunct are branched at the same level. So thanks to X-bar theory that we can distinguish between the preposition phrase which functions as a complement and the preposition phrase which simply functions as an adjunct and it's not required by the head. So the complement is sister to X0 bar, in this case N0 bar, and dominated by N bar, and the adjunct is sister to 1 bar dominated by N1 bar. Thanks to X-bar theory that now we can distinguish between the complement and the adjunct, okay? In terms of the hierarchy, which means that the complement is closer to the head and the adjunct is higher up in the tree. Okay?
Professor?
Is this clear?
And,
yes?
We can come with new smaller constituents that couldn't have been generated in the old structure.
Yes, yes, you can add that, yeah.
Professor,
okay, now
I have a question, please.
yes.
In fact, if we use the DP here, is it incorrect?
No, I will accept that, but just the question says X-bar theory, but DP is within extending X-bar theory. Okay, so you have to pay attention to the question. The question says X-bar theory, not extended, but it's okay if you use it. If it's okay if you provide us with further explanations or the latest advancement, but if you go back in terms of the historical development of syntax, that's what is not accepted. If I ask you about X-bar theory and you go back to the traditional branching, but if you move from word to extending, no problem. So number 5, I identify and explain the ambiguity in the following sentence by using the tree structure. Very friendly men and women. This is ambiguous. And by the way, you will have ambiguity in the exam. So you don't need to draw the whole tree 2 or 3 times if you have 3 ambiguities, okay? You don't need to do that. You can draw only one tree and use different colors to indicate different ambiguities, or repeat only the ambiguous phrase or clause or whatever, because you will have only 1 hour in the exam and you may have 3 or 4 questions, so you don't need to waste time. Just one tree and use different colors to indicate ambiguity. Okay, so very friendly men and women. Who can explain ambiguity here?
Professor?
Yes, please. Nadia, Jazi?
Yes, Professor, we have here very friendly men and women. The ambiguity that's very friendly is only with men. First one. And we can have a very friendly man and very friendly woman.
Okay, so very friendly. Who is very friendly? Okay, only men as a category, or both men and women? So only men, this is the first interpretation, or men and women together. Men and women together. Okay, so we're going to show the 2 ambiguities. So number 1, the first interpretation, you should say that very friendly modifies only men, which means only men, okay, who are very friendly. So this is a DP, okay. You can use extending X-bar theory, okay. So DP, we have DP, we have D bar and D0 bar. Then we have the NP, In bar. Go ahead, Jesse.
In bar, and we have men. Another and bar to make the conjunction.
We have very friendly first adjective phrase. Okay. And adjective phrase, we have adjective bar.
Adjective. And we have adverb phrase, adverb bar, adverb very.
Very. Adjective
friendly.
bar.
Adjective bar, friendly.
So from the NP,
we have a NP. NP and N bar, and another N bar. One man.
Remember. Okay, remember the rule of conjunction: in bar, in bar, in bar. And here we have conjunction N. So in bar, and bar, man.
And here, N bar, and women.
Women. So in this case, very friendly modifies this node, which includes both of them, which means that this is, in this meaning, very friendly modifies both men and women. Okay, both men and women, because it is sister to the N bar that includes men and women. Okay, so this is the first interpretation. Okay, it's the first interpretation, which in which the adjective phrase is sister to the in bar that includes men and women. Okay, which means that it modifies both of them. Now, in the second meaning, and this is what I said, in the exam you don't have much time, so you don't need to repeat the whole phrase, just start from the ambiguity. Okay, so the in bar here, so this is the conjunction. The second meaning, so and here, and in bar here, noun, women. Okay, so the second meaning, very friendly, modifies only men, which means it must be branched from the node that directly includes men. Okay, so here we have noun, man. Okay, very friendly because it's an adjunct. We add another. Okay, and bar. Okay, so here we have the adjective phrase. Okay, so you see the ambiguity? And since you already, I understood that you already branched the adjective phrase, adjective bar, then the adverb phrase, then the adjective bar. I understood that you know how to branch the adverb phrase as an adjunct to the adjective phrase bar, so you don't need to repeat it here. This is something that I can understand just from the previous branching of the sentence. So you can do just like this, very friendly. You can do it just because you already did it in the first tree. So for me, when I'm correcting your paper, I understand that you did it correctly in the first tree. You don't need to repeat it there, but don't do it in the two, okay, interpretation. You see now, I don't need to repeat the whole phrase. I target only ambiguities. Okay, so if you have it in the exam, you can simply target the ambiguities. You don't need to draw the tree for the whole phrase. If you have something in the exam, like, please remember this, you may have it in the exam. Sometimes I'm giving you hints to the exam, okay? If you have something like there was, etc., etc. So in the exam, if the question is about ambiguity, you don't need to draw this, there was, etc. Go directly to the ambiguity. Okay? So don't ask me in the exam, should we branch the whole? I'm giving you the answers now. Okay? Right. So in the first interpretation here, very friendly is sister to the in bar that includes men and women. So it modifies the two. In the second interpretation, very friendly is branched with men alone. which means it modifies only men. Any question? Now we move to the movement, WH questions. What did you say? Okay, you should branch it. Okay, so what did you say? So without even indicating that you have to use expanding expective, you have to, because if you don't use CP, you cannot branch it. So what did you say? What did you say? Yes, please, who can do it? Raise your hands, please. Muhsin, yes?
Okay, Professor, we have what did you say in the deep structure is did you say what? We have CP.
So did you
say what?
Say what? This is the deep structure we have to start with.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
We have CP, C bar, C0 bar, C0 bar. We have GP and GP, G bar, G0 bar, and VP. And VP. From the VP, we branch DP, which is U.
And under T, we have?
Under T, we have the auxiliary did. Yeah. And from the VP, we have V bar.
You can add here active, okay?
Active and V bar and
passive,
VP. VP. And we have the verb say and the DP watch.
Okay, good.
We have two movements in the sentence. We have the first, we have move the DP from the spec of the VP to the spec of the GP.
So this DP, sorry, because
because we have because it is a sentence.
Okay, so this is a WH word. It moves to the spec of CP. Okay?
CP, yeah. And second movement, we move the DP from the spec of the VP to the spec of the GP.
Okay.
And we move, and we have the third movement, G2C movement. We move did to the G2C.
Wait. Just one moment, please. Just.
Okay.
So the DP must move to
the spec of GP.
Yes, to the spec of GP.
And
don't forget, please, you have to use trace here, DP. Trace.
Yes.
DP.
And the third movement. And move.
We still don't. We move the auxiliary T. Why? Because this is a question. So here we have the features plus Q. Don't forget these features, please. Plus Q and plus WH word. So it moved here to pronounce the feature of plus Q. And if I ask you about the motivations of the movement, so please remember this explanation. The WH word moves to the spec of CP to pronounce that WH feature. To pronounce that WH feature. Please remember the explanation. And the T2C movement moves, okay? So this T, the auxiliary did, must move to C to spell out that plus Q question that we have there. Okay, to spell it out. Okay, any question? Is it clear?
Professor, the first VP in the tree, can we call it voice phrase to differentiate it from the second VP? Is this correct?
The first VP is active here. This one.
Can we call it voice phrase?
Yes, you can do that. I think we talked about this. we talked about this. We can use two VPs here, or you can use voice phrase, voice bar, voice zero bar.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You can do that, but it's better to follow this one to be consistent. Okay. The other question, please, is yes, constituency test. Does the following underlying group of words form a constituent? Use at least one constituent test to justify your answer. He met John in June. So in June, is it a constituent? Justify your answer using constituency test. Yes, please.
Professor?
Yes, Khadija?
Here, sorry, a moment. Here we have he met John in June. In June is a constituent according to the replacement test because it can be replaced by one word. For example, he met John yesterday. Additionally, I'm going to apply another constituency test. In June can stand alone as an answer to the question, when did he met John? So it is a constituent.
Okay, good. Okay, good. That's a good answer. We move to B now. The book over there is a good reference to understand syntax. So over there, is it a constituent? So who can answer this question, please?
Professor.
Nordin, yeah?
Over there is a constituent since it's an answer to the question when.
Are you sure?
We can use the constituents, the Clifton, and move the sentence. It's a good reference to understand syntax, that book over there.
Yeah, but here you are using Clifton on a good reference, not over there. Can we say you got the point? You are using Clifton, but you are applying this on a good reference. Repeat what you said.
I said it's a good reference to understand syntax.
No, you should you should say it's over there.
It's over there.
The question is about over there, so you should use over there in Clifton, not a good reference. Can we say it's over there? The book is a good reference.
No, we cannot. So.
Professor?
Yes.
I have tried to use the replacement test and the stand-alone test even here. According to the replacement test, over there is a constituent because it can be replaced by one word, such as here, for example. We can say the book here is a good reference to understand syntax. Moreover, over there can stand alone as an answer to the question, where is the book that can be used to understand syntax? It is over there, or we can say only over there.
Okay, so because constituency test itself is problematic because you have to pay attention because sometimes we said this, sometimes you apply one constituency test, it works, but if you apply another, it doesn't. So if you apply at least two constituency tests and it works, then it's fine, it's a constituent. If you apply only one and it works or it doesn't work, you shouldn't be sure yet. Okay, you shouldn't be sure, so you have to think of extra or more constituency tests. So I would say it's a constituent because we can replace it by one word. We can also use a standalone test. So since we have two tests, constituency tests, that work correctly, that's fine. Okay. Although we know that it can't be used in Clifton. Okay, but
Professor.
we still have 2 constituency tests. So in the exam, if you can prove that at least 2 tests, constituency tests, can be used correctly, that's fine. Okay.
Professor.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Nordin?
How can we use the standalone tests in this example?
Yeah, you ask the question. What is the book? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
What is
Thank you.
the book, or what is the book which is
good.
or as
Yeah.
a reference to understand syntax, or but you have to feel that position there. So you can simply say over there as an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And of course, if you think of it syntactically, so if you think of the tree, so we have the NP or the DP, we have determinant there, we have in bar, then we have in another in bar, then we have the preposition phrase, which is over there, then we have in 0 bar, then we have book, which means syntactically it's a constituent that can stand alone. Okay? The book over there, if you think of it, so we have like DP, we have D bar, we have D, we have there, and then we have in bar, another in bar, and we have noun, which is so book here, and here we have the preposition phrase over there, which means that this is a constituent. Okay, it's a constituent that stands alone syntactically. Okay. So the last question is explain why the following sentence is incorrect according to theta role theory. Theta role. Yes, please.
Professor?
Raise your hands, please. Those who know the answer, raise your hands. Okay, raise your hands, please. Raise your hands. Okay. Rida? Yes, Mr. Rida? Mr. Rida?
Sorry, sir. I was speaking. I didn't saw that the microphone was turned off. Anyway,
Yes.
So the verb gave requires 3 arguments. And here we can see that we have only 2 arguments. The first argument is the source or the agent, and the second one is the team. The third one should be the recipient.
Good.
But here we don't have the team. So it lacks a team argument. So
the team
the team,
the team, yes.
the
Because
team
we have the recipient here.
Yeah, we have the recipient, the people. So the team theta role is not assigned to an argument. So this violates the second condition of the theta criterion.
And don't forget, in the exam, you can, to support your answer, you can draw the theta grid. You can draw the theta grid, okay?
Sure, but the index of the lower box will be empty of the
Yes,
team.
yes, exactly, okay? Yes. So this is something that you should do in the exam to support your answer. So we already know that the verb give requires, okay, 3 arguments, okay? So requires, sorry. So it requires the subject. The subject must be what? Must be agent or
source.
or source. Yeah, very good. And it should be a DP, okay? It should be a DP, okay? So, and it requires a recipient, okay? A recipient, which is a DP. And it requires a team, which is also a DP. Okay, so I, J, and K or whatever. Right, now the problem is that, yeah?
The theme can be DP or PP.
Yes, yes, can be DP, PP, like what? Now the recipient can be DP or PP, okay? For example, I gave John, or I gave the book to John, okay? It can be DP or PP, the recipient, okay? Now the sentence that we have, the son gave the people, So here, which one is lacking here?
The team.
The theme is lacking, okay? Yeah. So we don't have this one. Okay, so this is violation of violation. Yes.
Can we add that the sentence is semantically incorrect?
Yes, I will talk about that point.
Okay,
I will
thank
talk
you.
about that one. So there is a violation of theta criterion. Okay, theta criterion.
Principle.
Because there is a theme that is missing its argument in the sentence here. Okay, and you can add one semantically. Semantically, the verb give requires an agent which is a human being. Okay, which is a human being. So semantically, this is, if you want to add it, because we're not dealing with semantics, but you can add it if you want. You can say that the verb give requires an agent which is a human being, and the son is not a human being. Okay?
Professor?
That's all. And pay attention to the other aspects that we didn't talk about here. Other aspects like, well, let me remember. Other aspects like C command, precedence, dominance, etc. Other aspects like the expansion of the phrase, whether it is based on. Do you still remember those concepts that we talked about? The expansion of the phrase?
Ethnocentric
endocentric and exocentric. You may have them in the exam as well. I will give you like a structure, and you need to explain whether it is endocentric or exocentric. So this is all. If you understand this, I think you'll have no problem in the exam. And remember, please, you may have 3 or 4 questions in the exam. Don't write too much. So, for example, if you have a sentence like this or 3 statements like this, be specific. This statement is incorrect because a book is an R expression. R expressions must be free. Full stop. So it violates binding principle B. Okay, which means that you can answer 3 or 4 questions in less than 1 hour. You don't need to write too much. Okay.
Professor?
Yes, please.
On the last sentence, we don't need to put the indexation on the sentence and underline the subjects on the data grid.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that if you want. Okay.
Professor.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
Please, I missed the correct answer of what motivates T2C movement. Please, if
well,
it's
T2C
possible.
movement, it's clear to spell out the plus Q feature because it's a question. Okay, T must move to C to spell out that plus Q feature under C.
So?
Thank you, Professor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Yasir?
So in the exam, each question is going to tell us which kind of T to use extend the XBAR, to use the last structure we learned where we always started with the deep structure, or just what?
I will try to be very direct, very specific. Okay, if I ask you a question, so I will specify which theory to use in particular. Okay.
Understood. And the exam questions will be the same types we